Let's go to our first questioner. Senator, this is Clark Darwood. He's an Occupation Development Officer for Henry Ford Systems. Clark.
Hi, thank you. My question has to do with, I'm a first-generation Chaldean American, and I watch what happens in the Middle East. I'm personally, as well as just as a person, horrified because that's where my father is from. Left unchecked, ISIS is going to perpetuate genocide on a number of religious minorities in that area, and I'm wondering how you, in your foreign or your military policy, will address that crisis.
Thank you very much for that important question. All of us, I think, can agree that ISIS is a barbaric organization that has to be destroyed. The question is, how do we do it most effectively? One of the differences between Secretary Clinton and myself is I voted against the war in Iraq. She voted for the war in Iraq. And in many ways, a lot of the turmoil and the instability that we're seeing right now resulted from that disastrous decision. The lesson that I have learned from the war in Iraq is that the United States cannot and should not do it alone. We have got to work in coalition. King Abdullah of Jordan, I think, made a very profound statement a couple of months ago, and he said, you know, what's going on there right now is a war for the soul of Islam. And the people who have got to most effectively deal with that issue are the Muslim nations themselves. They are the ones on the ground who are going to have to destroy ISIS. And I agree with that. I will do everything that I can to keep American troops out of perpetual warfare in the Middle East. But I do believe, along with a coalition of the major countries on earth, the United States, UK, France, Russia, I believe we should support the Muslim troops on the ground with air attacks, with military equipment, and with all of the help that we can provide. But it should not be our troops on the ground for many, many reasons.
Senator, if I could follow up, do you think what's happening to Christians in the Middle East should be classified as genocide?
Look, what's happening to Christians in the Middle East, in that area, is horrific. What is happening to Muslims is horrific. It is disgusting. And I don't know that we have to put a word on it. But when you have a group, I mean, what can we say about these people? They are killing children because they are going to school, girls who are going to school. They're putting girls in sexual slavery. This is barbarism. And together, in coalition, we have got to destroy ISIS.
Senator George Jackson is self-employed. George?
Hey, George, how are you?
Hi, Senator Sanders. I'll speak for the American public. You're much more honest than Hillary. Also a Trump supporter. My question to you is, you talk about the rich, and by taxing the rich to help our economy, wouldn't that hurt those rich business owners that help create jobs?
Well, George, good question. I disagree with you in this sense. We got to put into context what's happened in the last 30 years. And what's happened in the last 30 years, as you may know, you can tell me if you disagree with me, but the facts are there has been a massive transfer of wealth from the working class and the middle class to the top 1/10 of 1%. And right now we have seen a doubling of wealth owned by the top 1/10 of 1%. 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. You talk about corporations and job creation. Almost all of the major corporations in this country, do you know what they've been doing in the last 30 years? Do you think they've been creating jobs in America? No, they've been creating jobs in China and Mexico. And one of the strong differences of opinion that Secretary Clinton and I have helped lead the opposition against every one of these terrible trade programs. NAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China. I don't believe American workers should be forced to compete against desperate people around the world who are making pennies an hour. And if elected president, George, I am going to change those trade policies. Corporations are going to invest in America, not in China. But to answer your question, I do not believe in trickle-down economics. I do not believe that if you give tax breaks to the rich and large corporations, suddenly it's going to come down and help working families. What I do believe in is that we got to put more money into the hands of working families. How do you do that? You raise the minimum wage to a living wage. You know, I was in Flint, Michigan, well, obviously last night, but on several other occasions. Our infrastructure, and it's not just, George, it's not just Flint. where kids are drinking poisoned water. It is all over this country, our roads and our bridges and our airports. Why is it that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, our infrastructure is collapsing? So I believe we should do away with tax loopholes. You can argue with me. I don't think it's appropriate that you have major corporations making billions of dollars a year, stashing their profits in the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, and you know what they end up paying in a given year? They don't pay a nickel in federal taxes. I think they should pay taxes. I think we use that money to rebuild our infrastructure. We create 15 million jobs over the next 10 years. So I think you and I have a difference.
All right, Senator.